Hiya and welcome to Hero Movement. Today we're going to look at a few ideas that are potentially, hopefully, going to help you with consistency. So forming a consistent movement practice, fitness training program to get you closer to your goals and actually achieving the things that you set out to achieve. So when I ask people when they sign up to my newsletter at heromovement.net what their biggest struggle is with regards to movement or fitness or just general well-being, the big thing that comes up again and again and again is consistency, forming a consistent practice. So the story often goes that we set our minds on a goal, we start working towards it, and it goes well for a week or two, or maybe even a little bit longer, but then slowly we start to kind of wane. The motivation maybe decreases and we end up, before we know it, back where we started. And this can go on for just again and again, just the same old cycle, and you can be years down the line and not actually having achieved the goals that you set out to achieve. And that's not to say that we should all be working towards big goals. Some people feel it's not necessary, and if they're happy doing the things that they enjoy and not necessarily striving for the next thing, then that's amazing if you can just be content with where you are. But if you do have goals in mind, then consistency is key. And this is something that I struggled with for quite a long time due to a few underlying injuries and niggles and health things, and also my own stubborn, silly approach to training. I would work towards goals, I would hit some of them, but a lot of the time I would end up burning out, getting injured, and have to take a lot of time off and then just be starting back from scratch again. Thankfully, things have changed in recent years, particularly the last year or so, and my approach to training has shifted, and I've incorporated a few ideas and principles that have allowed me to be a lot more consistent and actually reach towards a lot of the goals that have been on my bucket list for ages. So there could be a whole host of reasons why you might be struggling with consistency and actually achieving the targets that you set out to. But the good news is that oftentimes it's only a few simple tweaks in your habits or your approach to training that actually makes a big difference and allows you to get to where you want to be. So today, that's exactly what I'm going to share with you. So what has worked for me, what I've seen work for other people, and how to avoid kind of some of the common pitfalls and errors that people fall into when they're looking to get more consistent with their training. So I'll take you through the goals and things that I'm actually working on right now and how I'm applying these basic principles to help me stay consistent with my practice. So the first big step is to be specific. So specificity, which is a difficult word to say, is kind of like a key ingredient to success. I don't like that word. To achieving what you want to achieve in any area of your life, really, whether it's your movement practice or with your business or whatever, really. Dialing in on one or two main goals that are specific to you and just kind of focusing your energy on that. Just getting clear on what you want to achieve, and more importantly than that is why you want to achieve it. So what's that deep underlying motivation that's going to get you excited about working towards the goals? Because for the most part, goals and the idea of the end result is it sounds really cool, like getting your one-arm handstand, or it doesn't matter what the goal is. That end result, we often kind of put it up on a pedestal, and we forget about the day-to-day, often monotonous and difficult work that goes into actually getting to that result. So what is your deep motivation that's going to keep you moving when you actually don't really want to move that much? It's important you're working towards something that really means something to you, and it's not just some random goal that you saw on Instagram or someone else's version of success. It's got to be something that you actually believe in. Otherwise, it's probably not going to work for very long. So the next thing is prioritizing which goal you're going to work on now, or which one or two goals. So you might want to get a handstand and a double bodyweight deadlift or squat and I don't know, a million other different movement skills or goals and losing X amount of weight. And there's no right or wrong answer. Again, like it's got to be a goal or goals that are personal to you. But what we often see is that we end up picking 50 million different things to work on right now. And that's one of the big sort of roadblocks that stops us from actually achieving any of those things. We don't have the capacity to put in the deep work for every single little thing if we're trying to multitask. And we usually do a lot better if we can single task or focus on one or two things and divert all of our energy towards those things. And yeah, probably gonna get much better results, and probably a lot faster than if we spread our attention wide. So one way to do this effectively is to pick those one or two goals and then put other things on maintenance mode. So this is something that Ido Portal has talked about quite a bit. So you're honing in on your goals, but without letting other areas of your life or your fitness or movement practice slip up and just deteriorate completely. So what does that look like? For me, I'm currently basically rebuilding from the ground up after being silly again with an injury. Rebuilding my handstand, freestanding handstand, and the slow ring muscle up. So I'm basically starting from scratch with those two things again. And I'm structuring my movement sessions and my training around those two things over the next 2 to 3 months. I picked those two because they excite me. They're skills I've wanted to kind of conquer for quite a long time, and I've been putting a lot of energy and attention towards them, but just didn't have that sensible approach, and I just kept messing myself up. But I also picked them because although they're quite different, in many ways they're also quite similar. Like, the underlying principles for achieving a handstand and for the ring muscle up, you need a degree of shoulder mobility, which is something that I've struggled with in the past, and a degree of strength as well around the shoulder girdle. So by working on the one goal, although visually they look quite different skills, there's actually a little bit of transfer. So I'm not just working on two completely different goals. So then to maintain some of my other skills or components of fitness, like say lower body strength, I'm doing very small amounts throughout the week. So I'm doing some barbell work for the lower body just once a week as part of my overall ring session. So just a little bit, sort of 20 minutes at the start of the session. And then I'm also greasing the groove, which is a concept by Pavel Sats, I don't know how to say the last name, the Russian strength training coach. I think he's Russian. So throughout the day, I'm just doing kettlebell swings or dumbbell swings and balancing drills and some coordination things, just to keep things ticking over so they don't completely deteriorate. So when I go back to working on one of those things as a main goal, then they're still sort of there, they haven't regressed completely. So I'm not looking to make any big improvements necessarily in those areas. I'm just looking to keep them on this sort of maintenance mode. So that's point one. Be specific, pick one or two things, and don't overload yourself with 50 billion, million, zillion goals. Mid-video stretch. Oh. The second thing that has been a big turning point for me is prioritizing recovery. So overtraining or under recovering and the subsequent sort of burnout and injuries that come from that is one of the big things that stops people being consistent. And I know that was definitely the case with me. Again, it comes back to overloading ourselves, trying to bite off a bit more than we can chew, and training like silly amounts in the week and not really thinking about how we're going to recover from that and kind of rebuild our body so it's ready for the next session. So for me, like, my body would be giving me the warning signs. Like, I'd get mouth ulcers, I'd get aches in my joints, but it was a case of just ignoring the warning signs and carrying on. But eventually then the body would just burn out, and instead of you mindfully taking a pause or putting in like the recovery protocols, it would just do it for you, and then it'd be out of training for weeks or months, and then you've got to rebuild from the start again, which is not really a fun process to keep going through it again and again. So for me, over the past few years, the big mental shift has been viewing my training as a practice, as opposed to just some time that I could spend battering my body and kind of almost punishing my body in a way, which is not really a healthy mental space to be in. Like, it sounds really cool to like be like, oh, go hard and go home, go hard or go home. But in reality, that's not necessarily the best long-term approach. So I used to train quite frequently, probably too frequently, and it would be high intensity stuff. And I didn't really think about recovery at all. Really. It wasn't just wasn't on my radar. And even if I didn't end up getting hurt or having a flare-up of health things, most of the time I'd just be walking around sore and aching. It would make it difficult then doing the other things that I really liked. Just simple things like walking and surfing and martial arts. If you've got that underlying ache and just fatigue, it makes everything a little bit more difficult and less fun. So for me right now, my goals are important to me, but I want to train to live and not live to train, which has been a big shift for me. So I'll do a separate video on sort of recovery protocols and stuff another time, because it could be quite an in-depth video, but I'll just share some of the main points. So one is looking at training frequency. So as the name suggests, how often are you going to be training? How long is each session going to be, and how intense is it going to be too? So for me at the moment with the rings training, that's 2 or 3 sessions a week. Handstands, I'm doing 3 to 4 sessions a week, and 2 of them are longer, so sort of about an hour or so. And then the other 2 are shorter, depending on how my body's feeling and what else I'm doing that day or throughout the week. And then also the kind of the lower body maintenance stuff just throughout the day and once a week too. So there's no perfect sort of frequency or volume of training, but it's important just to find what realistically works for you. So if you're working a full-time job and you've got family commitments and everything else that life throws at you, training 7 days a week, 2 or 3 hours a day is probably not going to be the most sustainable option. So just really having a look at how much time you've got to play with and really making those sessions focused and really geared towards your goals. So the next thing is nutrition in terms of the recovery. So eating for recovery and just general well-being, not just to fuel performance. It's easy to kind of throw down a load of carbohydrates or energy gels and caffeine and stuff before your workout that might potentially increase your performance, but then how are we recovering afterwards? What are we doing to look at the big picture and nourish our bodies, as opposed to just viewing it as fuel for the machine to keep it running. To keep it running. So thinking about what we can do to bring our body back down after training into that parasympathetic sort of rest and digest state, which is actually where we make those adaptations from our training, where we grow and actually make the progress towards our goals. So for me, that means lots of whole plant foods. I'll do another nutrition video another time. It's a protein source, but not going crazy with it. Some healthy fats for kind of hormone support, and a healthy source of carbohydrates as well, sometime post-training, usually not straight away, to replenish glycogen levels and kind of kickstart that recovery process. Third thing with recovery is sleep. So making sure not only that we're getting enough sleep, so that 8 to 9 hour mark, but also ensuring our quality of sleep is as good as it can be. So aside from kind of avoiding screens towards the end of the day and making sure your bedroom is kind of a relaxing place, what can you do in terms of your routine to down-regulate and to wind down in the evening? So that could be reading or stretching, having a bath. Just put in a few simple habits that can help you relax and get a better night's sleep. And then just everything else works better when you're well rested. So that's point 2, prioritizing recovery so you're at your best and you can function as well as you possibly can in your training sessions and in everyday life too. So the third thing is flexibility. And I don't mean flexibility in terms of range of motion, but the ability to adapt your training plan based on your goals, based on your recovery, and based on how you're actually enjoying it. The first part of this is tracking, figuring out where you are right now, where you want to get to, and how that's going to look sort of day to day. So I use an old training journal, it looks like that, and as well as just sort of tracking what I'm doing in each workout, I set targets at the beginning of each session, and then at the end of each session I do a little review, just a few sentences to just go over how that session went, how it felt, and what I could potentially improve upon, and what I could do different next time. So the big benefit of this is over the period of weeks and months, you start to notice some patterns. You can see if you're improving or if you're kind of hitting a plateau. You can see how your recovery is affecting your training, and you can also just judge whether you're enjoying the training or not from your notes and from just how you're feeling. So using all this information, you can then start to adjust your sessions if you need to get them a little bit more aligned with your goals and what you actually really want to work on. So it sort of comes back to mindfulness, really, just checking in at the end of each session, before each session, just for a few minutes or so. And it's a little bit more conscious as opposed to just getting your head down and just doing the set workout that's been written for you 8 weeks ago. There's this analogy that if a spaceship is heading to a target and it's off by just a degree, then it's going to miss that end destination by millions or billions of miles. But if we can make those micro adjustments at the end of each session or every week or two, then we can kind of adjust the course on the way and ensure that we're getting a little bit closer to where we actually want to get to and our end goals. So it's a simple thing, just keeping a training journal, having a rough outline of a plan of where you want to head, and just taking some notes at the end of every session, at the start of each session, and just making little adjustments when you feel necessary. So that's about it for this video. I hope it's been useful to you in some shape or form. If you want to see more like this, where I kind of check in with my own training and movement practice, then let me know in the comment section below. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. Let me know what you're working on in your training as well. I'd love to hear that. Other than that, hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe if you haven't done already. Have a healthy, heroic week, and I'll catch you soon.